welcome to the In Good Kompany Podcast. I hope you're all staying safe and well out there. This is on Manchester TV, of course, on Freeview Channel 99 and Sky Channel 195. Very impressive, right? I do have three guests. It may end up as two by the look of it, but we will carry on regardless here on this look back at our wonderful club, Manchester City. I definitely have with me Colin again for his second time. Colin, how are you doing?
Oh, great. It's been a good weekend, hasn't it, so far, from a City fan's point of view?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll say I didn't see anything of the other match that was played just after ours, but I'm sure we're all joyous that we've currently 3 points clear at the top of the league with the same goal difference, although they've scored more goals. So if we lost, they'll go above us, but we won't worry about that too much, Amos, will we, mate? How are you doing, Amos?
Yeah, good. I did see much of the game just after hours, and it was probably more of a tense affair than the City Newcastle match. In fact, it was a good game, a proper 4:30 on a Sunday evening, that sort of game just before Christmas. It was a belting match, but obviously here to talk about much bigger and much more important things.
Yeah, we don't care about those, do we? Let's talk about City. That's all that matters. Abdul, mate, while you're here, my friend, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm fine. Well, as I've always said, man, whenever City play, no one can ever be sad. No City fan can ever be sad when City play. So today was no exception as well. So a win was perfect for us. So I hope all of you are doing well as well.
Super, right. The teams, guys. It was an interesting one by Pep. It was a bit of a funny, again, a bit of an odd one. There was no Foden, no Grealish, which, all right, we could probably understand. No Walker, and when he was questioned about Walker, he said he didn't feel right. He didn't say whether he was injured. He didn't say whether he's got psychological problems. He didn't say anything after the game. He just said he didn't feel right for it. So it's a bit of a weird one with Walker at the moment, guys. Colin, I'll just go through this team. Apart from that, what did you think of it? Edison, Cancelo, Diaz, Laporte, Zinchenko, Rodri, KDB, Bernardo, Mahrez, Jesus and Sterling. Were you happy with that, Colin?
Yeah, happy with that. No great problems. Obviously, Walker, maybe it's a Spurs thing. I don't know. But, we put out a team and it's a mix and match team. The depth we've got is incredible. I looked at that team and didn't have any concerns whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come to you, Abdul. Just looking at the Newcastle team, that was probably 4 or 5 changes to what I thought it might be. Obviously, had Dubravka, Murphy, Lascelles, Clark, Ritchie, Hayden, Willock, Joe Linton, Almiron, Fraser and Wilson. Obviously, no Maximum, which I didn't mind for one iota, a bit like Traore for Wolves. He always seems to play quite well against us. What did you think, Abdul, about that Newcastle team?
Well, obviously, I think you've also said this on Twitter that Maximum wasn't playing, and obviously he was the real threat to our team. Like just as Traore, as you said, and even Zaha when we played against Crystal Palace. So seeing him not on the first starting 11 was a kind of like a relaxed face for us, because obviously he's not gonna bully our defenders, which all these pacey players do. But for me, whatever team Pep plays, I wouldn't mind. If we lose, we win. It's his choice. But good thing that Maximum didn't play, so we got the win, so it's fine.
Yeah, Amos, it was interesting, wasn't it? I remember I was listening to the commentators, and they were mentioning about Wilson, who'd actually been rested for the Liverpool game on the basis that this was perhaps an easier one to play to win than the Liverpool match. I thought it was quite brave of the commentators. What are your thinkings, mate? Was that Newcastle team the best he could put out?
Yeah, Liverpool easier than City. I mean, 2 very good teams. I'm not quite sure where he's put that from. Just on the Kyle Walker thing, though, going back, a bit of insight. Yeah. I don't know if you saw, he lost his best mate in last week. His best mate passed away. Dominic Yarwood. He was quite a notorious football agent, especially with lower league players, and pretty tragic. Was found his body was found in a river, I believe. So I think he's probably taking some time out there to sort himself out and make sure he's headstrong and hopefully when he returns, whenever that is, who knows. But I think because I saw a bit of speculation on Twitter, because coincidentally his last performance was the Leipzig game where he decided to volley an opponent off the ball. So some suggesting that he may have been given the Pep hairdryer treatment, but it seems there's a little bit more to it. So just thought I'd add that in there. But yeah, in terms of Newcastle's performance, team news, sorry. it was bizarre because you always feel St James Park could be the place where you can sting no matter what team comes and plays. You know, City have been liable to some dodgy results this season, and in the past, not too long ago, we were beaten at St James's Park in a title running. So to sort of leave out Alan St Maximin, but then bring it back in Callum Wilson, it's like, well, you probably should do one or the other. You either rotate completely for Liverpool and put everything into the City game, or you do the opposite. And I don't know, it just seemed a little bit of Eddie Howe not necessarily knowing his players just yet, and obviously much talk about the window coming up, but it was a pretty hapless performance from Newcastle. If I was a neutral, would have been left very disappointed.
Well, I mean, yeah, Amos, thanks for that thing about Walker, Amos, because I certainly didn't have any knowledge of that whatsoever. Not a lot of people did. And I say, when that reporter asked the question of Pep, perhaps he knew a little bit more and he was trying to catch Pep out, which typical journalist, typical sort of question to ask in that circumstance, isn't it? Let's be honest about it. So hopefully he's all right mentally, psychologically, etc., etc. So thanks for that, Amos. As I wasn't aware of that at all. So great. Let's get on to the game then. There were some key points. I must admit, I did go on to Twitter before the match, and obviously I do sort of have a look at the Newcastle team from the Newcastle tweet from their tweets, and obviously the responses from the fans. And come to you, Colin. Obviously they didn't fancy Mr. Clark at the back. They were wondering why the hell he was back in the Newcastle team, and obviously they didn't fancy Lascelles either. And obviously Mr. Clark had some sort of involvement very early in the game, mate. Was it about 5 minutes? Well, obviously talk us through what happened. That sort of little problem they had at the back within about 5 minutes, Newcastle.
Yeah, well, the ball came across from our right-hand side, didn't it? In either of Dubravka or Clark looked favourite to claim it, but both of them stood and watched it. It went over Kieran Clark's head when it looked easier to play it. And I'm not sure who was more surprised. I mean, Dubravka, Clark, or Ruben Dias, he was stood there and the ball fell to him because he couldn't have imagined for one moment that ball would come to him. And it was a shocking piece of defending. And someone said, I don't think Kieran Clark would really get in. I don't think Kieran Clark would get in the City side. And the Newcastle fans, I think they didn't feel he'd get in the Newcastle side.
I don't think you get the City side of the 80s, mate. I don't know about anything else. I mean,
St Albans City won't get in there.
So, yeah, I mean, Abdul, I'll come to you, mate. And it was a great start for City, obviously gifted. But I thought City looked a bit off it that first, certainly, obviously we'll talk about the first half in more detail, but certainly in that first 15, 20 minutes, it didn't seem to settle City down any. I thought Zinchenko, Abdul, was having an awful start to the game. He either couldn't, he was either losing the ball or he couldn't control it. He was going out for throw-ins. I mean, what were your impression of City, say, for that first half of the first half, the first 20, 22 minutes or something like that? Abdul, what do you think?
Well, ever since from the start of the match, I thought this was like a WWE event. Everyone was getting tackled. I just saw every card getting placed for everybody. And as you said about Zinchenko, he didn't play well today. Even I've seen that he couldn't control it, he couldn't pass it properly. So maybe might be the reason because Cancelo was playing on his position when Walker was available. So obviously he wasn't getting those minutes that he deserved to play. So obviously, Newcastle, they were pressing hardly. So obviously he was also in pressure as well. So for me, Zinchenko I'm not sure what to say about Zinchenko, but just we have to say that he should just get more minutes, just in case. And obviously with Walker's, absence, he has to fulfill that left back position because Cancelo can't do both of those. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Amos, we are. I know it's hard. No one's going to feel sorry for City. We are struggling defensively. Obviously, once we stick Cancelo onto his natural side, we are finding big problems on the left-hand defensive side again. I'm thinking that I was watching this game as well, and it's one of those games that I think Rodri struggled a bit, Amos. I mean, obviously, on the 25th minute, he picked up a yellow card. I think it was, is it Mr. Joe Linton was sort of running him ragged in that. And I think this is a game where he just didn't get into it, did he, Rodri, Amos? What do you think?
Yeah, it was bizarre. go back to that Cancelo point, I'd actually back him to play both left back and right back, and probably centre half and striker at the same time, if I'm honest. So we'll see where that one goes. But yeah, Rodri, he's probably been my player of the season. I know it's a bit of a left field shout given the former Bernardo and a couple of others, but I just think he's an ace footballer. He's a really, really good footballer, but today he just seemed a little bit sluggish, and he'd obviously been learning in the school of Fernandinho of how to evade a booking, because he could have probably had 2 or 3 before that for breaking up the play. And he's an integral part of City's midfield. City without Rodri are a different outfit, but today it was just one of those, maybe one game too many. He was superb in the week, and obviously then hacked sort of midway through the second half on that yellow card. You don't want to be picking up a needless second. So yeah, probably one to go into the column of games to forget for Rodri.
Yeah, Cole, I mean, obviously, Rodri, you sort of think in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, but perhaps Ferner could have started this one and given Rodri a little break. I mean, we're going to come back here to a crucial part again with you again, Colin. I want you to talk about the 27th minute. Obviously, we've already said it in a sort of lacklustre start to the game. Cancelo still looked okay, still looked one of our better players. And in the 27th minute, he sort of shown that, Colin, didn't he? What could you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I mean, it was the one real moment of quality that we had in that half, I think, certainly up to then and probably for the whole half. He brought the ball forward and it looked for a moment like he'd lost his chance to shoot. Then he took it past the Newcastle defender, the goal opened up, then a couple closed in, but he got his shot away, and it was an absolute pearler, wasn't it? And I'm going to take issue with something that Amos said earlier about Newcastle, being disappointed with Newcastle. I think one of the reasons we did struggle in that first half was because they were running us ragged. They were pressing us, they were harrying us. Well, we couldn't settle on the ball, we couldn't get into our usual rhythm. And I think
you were sort of saying more defensive the rest of the team down. Yeah.
I thought Newcastle, given their limitations, had a decent first half. But and the fact we were 2-0 up was kind of quite, I wouldn't say it was embarrassing, but
we didn't deserve it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, 22. We did say 2-0. There's no way City deserved to be 2-0 up. To be honest with you, after 27 minutes, I'll come to you, Abdul. Obviously, they had a chance of getting back into it, Newcastle. I mean, it's one of these. Obviously, they go into the studio and they all agree there was a sort of penalty shout, wasn't there, against again Ederson. For me, you could see early doors he was going to have one of those games for City where he was going to sort of come for everything and risk everything, and we saw that quite early on. He came for a cross or two and obviously got fouled or dropped it, but you could just tell with Ederson it was one of those days at Abdul. And obviously, let's just have a quick chat about that penalty. What do you think? It should have been a penalty, or what do you think, mate?
Like, looking at the footage, I'm not sure if it is a penalty, but for me, maybe it might have been a penalty. We are very lucky to they're not given the penalty, but for me, it does look like a penalty. I believe Eddie was just going for the ball. But as soon as Cancelo got the ball, he just pulled his hand back, and then obviously the player fell off. So for me, yes, I do believe it should have been a penalty, but it's not. So it's good for us.
Yeah, I mean, Amos, obviously the rules, I don't know that I get confused by the rules of the game, Amos. I'm not sure if you can tell me any better.
You're not alone.
Obviously, Ederson was sliding in, his actual natural movement took him through to take the player, but the ball had been cleared. I mean, obviously, if something happened before the ball was cleared, and perhaps that obviously it's a penalty, but surely the referee was correct in not awarding Newcastle anything. I mean, what's your judgment on that, mate?
Yeah, I'm not. I think City got away with it, to be honest. I'm not overly convinced that that the correct decision was made. Ederson's a repeat offender of this. I think it's probably the only sort of big cross I'd have in his column for his cons. He has a sort of almost like a puppy-like attraction to the ball at times, where if he sees a ball, he just cannot help himself to go for it. And he's given penalties away in a similar fashion before, where he's just misjudged it ever so slightly. The game's going at a rapid pace. You don't sort of begrudge him for doing that. He saved goals for doing that. But I just thought, if we see a tackle that late, after the ball has gone outside of the box or inside the box, and it's a defender on an attacker or two outfield players, it's sort of stonewall penalty. But it just seems because maybe he was wearing a different colour kit and he was a goalkeeper and he was doing it with his hands, and like you say, that's a natural movement. He wasn't trying to foul the player. Let's not sort of get that mixed up, but it just sort of again, I thought City were very lucky, and 2-1 at half time. It's a different game, but that sort of decision maybe was the pendulum that just swung it City's way in the end. But yeah, would they have deserved to get back into it, as Colin mentioned before? Probably. They had a decent half. I did mean like the sort of childlike defending for both of the goals, but in terms of that decision, maybe we get away with one, but who knows?
Yeah, so I mean, Colin, we go in at half time, and obviously the studio guests on whichever channel it was on were all saying it should have been a penalty. I think, as Amos was saying there, I mean, it's one of those that if it'd been the other way around, I wouldn't have been happy about it. But hey, we got away with it, didn't we? And let's face it, 2-1 at half time wouldn't have been an unfair score. In fact, going in drawing wouldn't have probably been an unfair score. But I did say at half time, this is a sort of game where Mr. Maximin against our jittery defence, which we seemed a little bit in that first half, that would thrive. I thought he would thrive against our players at the back, especially if Edison started running out like a scolded cat all half. So I wasn't surprised he came on immediately in the second half, Colin. Did you worry like me when you saw Maximin coming on the pitch for that second half?
Because he's quick, and unlike, we know Adama Traore turns into Messi, doesn't he, when he plays against us, and he's like Mr. Messi when he plays against everyone else. So I was a bit nervous, but I thought at 2-0 we'd probably done enough. And the other thought I had was Newcastle had put so much running in during that first half. The last quarter of the game, they weren't going to be doing that. They're not used to doing it. They weren't going to be doing it. So, you do worry if they get an early goal. It's a bit like the one the other week where I can't remember who it was, got an early goal in the second half.
Villa. Is it Villa?
It was Villa, yeah. And you do worry a little bit. But, Newcastle aren't scoring. I mean, I think the combination of St. Maximin and Callum Wilson is potentially a dangerous one. You look at that Newcastle side and you think they shouldn't be where they are, really. I mean, they're not going to be challenging for Europe, but they shouldn't be propping up the bottom with Norwich. So it's always a little, we're City fans, aren't we? You always assume the worst. 2-0's that dangerous score, isn't it? Where we've gone in, we know we've not played very well, we're 2-0 up, and there's a bit of a temptation to relax, isn't there? And at 2-0, and that's what always worries me a little. So yeah, I was a bit nervous till we got the third.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come to you, Abdul. Obviously, Pep probably give him a rollicking at half-time despite being 2-0 up. I think we'd all be surprised if he didn't. And I think the first 5 minutes of that second half, I think Newcastle had a little bit of a go. But then he saw City sort of slowly beginning to look calmer, cooler. We weren't misplacing passes. People were controlling the ball better. And we very, very nearly went 3-0 up, obviously, in the 52nd minute. A fantastic save. Can you remember much about that one, mate, from the Jesus header?
Oh, yes, I do remember, thankfully. So I believe the cross came in, and obviously Bernardo headed it towards Jesus, and it was kind of disappointing from Jesus. He actually struck it right towards Dubravka. He should have at least tried for the corners or somewhere below ground, but he decided to just head it straight through. Obviously, you can't blame him because the ball was coming at top speed. So it was disappointing from Jesus to obviously, he should have tried somewhere else, but no, I'm not. We definitely had more chances towards the game as it progressed.
Yeah, he was. I thought Jesus was having a bit of a struggle, like a lot of the players were. Again, there's probably 4 or 5 City players struggling in that game, even up to that stage. We didn't have too long to wait, though, mate, did we? Thankfully, for a third to go in. It wasn't clear cut, mate, was it, Amos? But just talk us through. It was the 64th minute, I think. It may have gone into the 65th to the 66th minute by the time we found out. But just talk us through that third goal, Amos.
Yeah, the most obvious VAR check that took upwards of 3 or 4 minutes in the end, didn't it? So Zinchenko again, he's delivered some beautiful crosses in the last couple of games when he's been in the team, and nice whipped cross from the left hand side, beat the offside trap, albeit again, childlike defending. I thought all of City's goals, probably with a half decent defence, could have been stopped in the end. But sweet finish from Mahrez. He's got one of the nicest left foots in world football, and you back him to score from there. Whereas if potentially City have some players, Jesus has just mentioned just before, and maybe even Raheem Sterling, who we'll come on to a bit later on, but that sort of control to take it out of the air and to just sort of guide it into the bottom corner. It didn't need any power. It didn't need any sort of extravagance. It was just a nice, cultured, left-footed finish. And from there on, it's game, set and matches. And all those fears of Newcastle trying to squeeze the way back in disappear, because I think the St. James Park crowd knew then it was game over.
Yeah, Colin, I mean, obviously 3-0. I think I settled down, even though I think most was at 2-0 with the way we started that second half. It calmed down a bit. Pep made the changes, didn't he? Brought Ferner on for Rodri, Stones for Diaz, and brought Palmer on, which was nice to see for Mahrez. But before the obviously we did score another goal, Colin, but before that, obviously the keeper at Dubrovnik, or what's he called?
Dubrovnik, that's in Croatia.
The keeper, the Newcastle keeper. His save was pretty good from Jesus, and obviously, thankfully, Ederson probably equalled that. Did he? A bit late on in the I think it was the 81st minute. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, it was a cracking save. Again, we were messing about a bit. I think in front of goal, we were still a bit, lackluster in some ways. I think we'd relaxed a little bit, and there was a cracking shot came in. It was high. But I think it was on target, and Ederson did really well to turn it over.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously probably slightly, I'd say slightly easier perhaps than the Newcastle one, because he was sort of going towards it. Newcastle guy was coming back across and had to sort of reach out his other arm to the other side. But obviously, he's not had the greatest game, Ederson, had he, Abdul, but obviously he sort of pulled us round with that one. And then it brought us very quickly, obviously, onto the 86th minute where it was done and dusted, wasn't it? And obviously, another guy I didn't think had got involved very much scored this goal. What do you remember about that one, mate?
Raheem Sterling, where is he? That's what I want to know. Where is he? He's top of the league. It just makes me really happy seeing Raheem back into his form. Obviously, I believe the Leeds. I don't think he played the Leeds game. I'm not sure, but he hasn't been involved in this game as much as well. But obviously, I'm really happy for him that he's back in form. So he gets his goal. Obviously, he's also entered the 100th century club when he scored that goal against Wolves. So I'm just really happy for him. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm going to say he should trademark that back post tapping, shouldn't it? Because it's. But interesting. Sterling scoring spoilt the sequence. I don't know if anyone else noticed this. Cancelo got the assist for the for Diaz's goal, first goal. Then Cancelo scored. Mahrez got the assist for Cancelo's goal. Then Mahrez scored. Zinchenko got the assist for Mahrez's goal. And then Sterling scored both sequence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was absolutely excellent. I mean, the thing is, as I said, Sterling, I thought it was back end, was it Jesus wanted it? I mean, another player hadn't played that well, Jesus. It was him who actually put it back for Sterling. And I all day long at Amos, I'd have Sterling just hanging around the 6-yard box. As long as he's onside, that's all I'd say to him. Just hang around near that 6-yard box, mate. That's all you have to do. Don't worry about picking the ball up 30 yards out and trying to dribble in. I think I just want him there ready to put the ball in the net, because we've seen him miss them from there, to be honest with you. We've seen him slide from 6 yards out. But Amos, I mean, obviously that's where I want Sterling to play. Would you agree, mate?
Yeah, 100%. They're the sort of goals we've seen Sterling score. As Colin mentioned, he's turned into a trademark Sterling finish, that back post tapping. But throughout this season, when he couldn't buy a goal in the early parts of the season, I think it was maybe Everton where he broke his duct. He was just trying so hard to get a goal, and you sort of felt this isn't going to come. You're trying too hard. Then he has a great finish, and since then has been on a really good run. And it seems like he's just almost chilled out a little bit, and he's not trying to do 100 things at once. He is there, at the back post, what he does best. And granted, he has skewed some wide. Burnley away in 2017-18, I think it was, springs to mind, a woeful miss at Turf Moor. But Sterling, he does. He scores goals. That's what he does best. That's what he should be doing best. And granted, his numbers this season don't add up. But if you take them out of the equation, the last 5 seasons, he's one of the most prolific goal scorers in the league, only behind the likes of Harry Kane and Mohamed Salah. So if he can sort of enter 2022, sort of forget about a difficult year with City, obviously fantastic year with England, but forget about a difficult year with City and enter 2022 with that mindset of, I know what I do best. I'm going to stick to that. He'll be an extremely dangerous weapon for City because I don't think there's many players as potent when he's on form as Sterling.
Yeah. Carl, we'll come to you. I mean, the match stats, I think we had 18 shots, 7 on target. Newcastle managed 5, 1 on target. We had, I think it was 73% possession and 91% pass accuracy. Now, the strange thing, I think we've talked through all this, and there's a couple of players not really been mentioned. We've not mentioned KDB, I don't think, in any of the, in this 20-minute report of the game. We didn't mention KDB. I mean, Laporte didn't get a mention. I mean, the Manchester Evening News was that disappointed with Laporte. They didn't even put him on the player ratings when they did the player ratings after the match. They missed him off. They were that disappointed. They forgot Laporte was there. So there you go. That's easily done. But it's interesting, that, Colin, isn't it? I mean, obviously, there's certain Bernardo, another one who didn't. Did we mention Bernardo? Strange, Colin. 4-0 victory. Yet there's certain key players there that just didn't come into the fray. What do you think?
Yeah, it wasn't 4-0 is a good win, but it wasn't really what you call a convincing win from our point of view. I think KDB, he looked fantastic, of course, in the last game against Leeds. But he was a bit marginal today, wasn't he? There was a few balls that that didn't really come off. And there was an incident where we had 5 on 3. KDB's got the ball at his feet. And in normal circumstances, you say that's a goal. But he played the wrong pass and he played it badly. And you just don't expect that from him, do you? I mean, Bernardo, yeah, he beavers away. You'll always get a shift out of Bernardo. Nothing spectacular, but I
think there's one right near the end where he did a tackle back at left back. I remember that he sort of eight odd minute, and he was, well, where's he come from? And he got the ball off the Newcastle player in the box. But as you said, normal sort of run his heart out, but nothing substantial.
I think he got a bit targeted by Newcastle as well. There were a few times where he got clattered. Maybe that kind of took some of the wind out of his sails. I don't know, but yeah, we're in 4-0, and you're saying that KDB and Bernardo have not been crucial to the win, and it's kind of telling, isn't it, about just how good we are as a team.
Yeah. Well, Abdul, we are good, aren't we? Because that's a couple of records today, wasn't it? Was it the 34th win in a calendar year, which beats Liverpool's? We've still got, in theory, a couple of games to go yet in this calendar year, so we can go a couple better than that, hopefully, if we carry on regardless. And also the 18th away win, which is the most ever in a calendar year in English football history, not just the Premier League, I believe. Tottenham did it in 60-61. I think they did 17 wins or something like that. Amos, you'll probably correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I think obviously the Jack Nicholson team, there you go, of 1960-61.
I'll take your word for it.
I was one then, guys. I was only one. I can't remember it. I think Colin told me about it. I was the great Jack Nicholson team of 60-61, the double winning team. So
are you sure you mean Bill Nicholson?
Yeah, Bill. Yeah, not Jack or John. Yeah, Jack. He was in The Shining. That's another story altogether. Yeah. Well, thank you, Colin, for that. Thank you, mate. So yeah, they don't win titles, or do they, guys? That's the thing. But before we leave this game today. Abdul, man of the match. Who do you think for City?
Definitely the same as what the Man City admin picked. Definitely Cancelo. He was crucial in this game. Obviously assisting. I believe whatever Colin said about the assist thingy, and obviously getting that bolt of a screamer. Like, what a goal that was. So he was obviously crucial, not only for this game, but obviously all the whole season that we have played, every game that we have played. So he's definitely my man of the match.
Amos, any different to that, mate?
Yeah, I'd probably say, as we've mentioned, it was a pretty underwhelming City performance despite being a 4-0. So I'd probably go for the City fans, to be honest. I know that's a bit Gary Neville-esque, but I thought that St James Park can be, as I said, a rowdy place to go. But I only heard the City fans, and it looked like an away end that you'd want to be in. So yeah, I'd probably go for the Blues. Just before Christmas, it's a long way, isn't it?
I mean, just on the fans. I mean, obviously, I noticed the Newcastle fans were getting credit towards the end when they were waving the flags.
God.
But it was a half-full Gallagate, and they were just
Yeah.
waving the flags. And let's face it, we've been in that position many times. We've been hammered by a
Yeah.
team who've just sung our hearts out because that's what you do. So there's nothing special. But as you said, for 90 minutes of that game, all you could hear were the City fans.
I found the thingy chant strange, actually. The Newcastle fans chanting "Man City, we're richer than you," which is a bizarre thing to say when you consider they'll probably be playing Championship football next season. So I don't know exactly what that's to benefit. But yeah, you know, it was
they really are going down with $1 billion in the bank.
literally,
Well, they're going down with 10 billion in the bank. So that's a total change to the thing. Colin, what about you, Colin? What do you think for the man of the match?
I think Cancelo. You couldn't argue with that. I mean, if you remember the days of the utility player, Leeds had Paul Madeley, didn't they? And we had Dave Connor, and Cancelo's almost like our utility player, except he plays all the positions in the same game, not in different games.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is as well. I mean, it took Cancelo and a couple of others to pull the other 8 or 9 guys through that first half because we weren't very good. It was as simple as that. And if we were going to be there for the taking, obviously Newcastle obviously weren't good enough to do it. But it wasn't the greatest first half. But we found our way in the second half, right? So nothing else on that match, guys. We've missed anything? Any that you can remember that we're not touched upon?
What one record you missed? I think it was we'd scored 106 goals in the calendar year as well. Is it 106?
Ah, right. Okay.
Which beats our previous record of 102, apparently.
Oh,
I'm not sure if that's the Premier
boring, guys. It's boring. The only record I want is to win the Champions League. But hey, there you go. That's another story, guys, isn't it?
It's all getting a bit 2017-18, isn't it? With all the records.
Can't keep
right,
up.
guys. Let's move on. We're going to talk about these things now, and obviously we're going to talk about the next 3 games that are going to come up before In Good Company comes back on air. Obviously, we're going to have a look at a quick preview of certain games. Boxing Day, 26th of December, 3 p.m. kickoff. We've got Leicester City at home. Interesting. I'll come to you, Abdul, first. Leicester City, strange team this year, mate. They seemed all right. They won the last game very, very well against a certain team that we know ourselves quite well now. But what do you think with Leicester? I'm not worried one iota. To go back 2 or 3 years, I used to panic when Leicester came to the Etihad. But what do you think, mate?
Obviously, I believe the last game that we played, we actually got that 1-0. We were very lucky that we got that 1-0 because they were actually quite tough to break through. And obviously, Jamie Vardy, he's just another son of Mo Salah, Adama Traore. He just loves scoring against City. And then again, we were very lucky that he got that goal offside, which he scored against us. So I'm seeing Leicester as a challenge again because they are actually very tough to break down. Despite, they lost their Europa League, now they're in the Conference League. So, but for me, it's going to be a tough match.
Yeah, Amos, interesting. I mean, they've had a few COVID problems, haven't they? I think when they played Napoli, they had a few players out with COVID, and it's only a week or 2 since then, isn't it? Since that Napoli game. And obviously, they beat Newcastle 4-0 at their place. Strangely enough, I think Newcastle actually had more of the play in that game, looking at the stats. He had more of the ball, more shots and everything. But obviously, it was Leicester who actually put the old ball in the old onion bag. So, I mean, I'm quite confident, but perhaps I'm too confident, Amos. We never really know with Leicester, do we? Because if they do, do sort of hit form, we know they've got the ammunition. And I don't think Vardy and Iheanacho have been playing, have they, recently? So if they get them 2 guys back, which is their prime pairing, if you like, they probably fancy a bit of a chance. What do you think?
Yeah, they're a bizarre team, Leicester, this season. Really, really strange team. But I think back to that Boxing Day game we had against them, I think it was 18-19, a couple of years ago, where they stung us on Boxing Day. And granted, that was at the King Power. This is at the Etihad. Who knows if that will play a difference. But they're a team who can get a result on the day. They did United earlier in the season, sort of end-to-end game there. And I think how City win this game is how they control it from the off. And if it's a performance in the first half we saw today where it is end-to-end, I expect City to concede 1, 2, maybe even 3, because Leicester have done that at the Etihad before, and I won't put it against them to do it again. So hopefully that sort of metronomic tick, 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 side to side ball, which I know everyone on Twitter seems to absolutely love saying how boring it is, like it matters that it isn't their football club. But, hopefully we do get one of those sleepy wins where we can just cruise to a 2-0, 3-0, because I agree with Abdul. It's a banana skin in the making, I reckon, especially after everyone's Christmas dinners the night before.
Yeah, well, they sit ninth. They sit ninth at the moment, Colin. Obviously, after a couple of fifth place finishes, I think they're a bit disappointed, but there has been reasons behind that. But as soon as some of the players start hitting form, like Maddison seems to be in good form at the moment, from what I've been reading, there's rumours that he'll be off somewhere in January and stuff like that. I mean, what are your thoughts on Leicester, Col?
Yeah, they're having a funny season. And I do have this theory that managers have a shelf life. We saw it a bit. What I always think of is Peter Reid at City, where he did really well for us, and then it drops off. And maybe the players don't listen anymore. Maybe the manager runs out of enthusiasm a bit. Maybe he's got nothing new to add. But they really have had a funny season, and they should, again, one of those clubs should be doing better than ninth, shouldn't they? But you look at the results. And they're not great. They won at Norwich. They beat United, which was no great shakes, and while Ollie was manager. They won at Brentford, good win. But they beat Watford. They beat Newcastle. It's but then they've lost to Villa, who are on the up. They drew at Southampton. They drew at Leeds. They're the sort of team that should be. They drew at Palace. They probably. We're saying they should be, we're telling them they should be higher, but with the results they're getting, they should be about 12th, 13th. So, but as you say, we've had some very interesting games against them over the years. Only just think back to that one in 2019, which, they completely frustrated us until Vincent Kompany stepped up, didn't they? And they're always capable of something. It's a game I always worry about, to be honest.
We'll see. I mean, I don't blame you. I think I'll be quite happy with obviously now we're top. I don't want to give it up, to be honest with you guys. I want to carry on regardless.
None of these 5-3s anymore.
I don't want any of this rubbish now of losing it. I know it's position, and I think is it out the last 12 seasons the team that were top at Christmas have won it, and the only 3 times they haven't is obviously a certain City have been involved. So there you go. It's a good omen, isn't it? Right, let's talk about another game. Let's talk about, I think we just mentioned them there, or they got mentioned. Brentford, 29th of December, a Wednesday night in Brentford. We didn't fancy a Sunday afternoon in Newcastle. This could be a bit of a banana skin. Abdul, what do you think?
Obviously, Brentford, a newly promoted side. I've seen some of their matches. Obviously, they drew against Liverpool 3-3. So that kind of shocked me. It's like a newly promoted team drew to one of the best teams in England. So seeing what they did with Liverpool, I don't know if they can do the same with us. There could be a possibility, but I believe obviously we can beat them. I haven't seen most of their results, but I do believe they're a good team. They do have a chance of stopping us, but obviously we're City, so hopefully we win that match.
Yeah, Amos, I mean, interesting. Similar to Leicester, I suppose. They are in 12th at the moment. They've won 5, drawn 5 and lost 6. So it's, and I think most of the wins came at the start of the season, but they managed to win the last couple of home games, I think. So that's not too bad, Amos. I mean, what do you expect from Brentford? Obviously, every time Brentford go out, to me, they seem to play with an enjoyment. They're enjoying the time in the Premier League, and obviously, if you do that, then they've almost sort of, you can't add a goal to. It's not like a handicap; you can add a goal to them, but it makes it a bit easier for them, does it, Amos? What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're superb, Brentford, and they're really good at home. Think back to Premier League opening night against Arsenal, and I know Arsenal have since transformed, but it set the tone for them really at home. They took Chelsea to the wire. They outdid Chelsea on XG quite considerably that day when Chelsea were in that sort of run of just winning games by 1 or 2 goals. As Abdul mentioned, they drew with Liverpool in another cracking game, and I reckon we could be in for, pardon the pun, but it could be a Christmas cracker just after the festive season, because you're looking at it, the games are coming really, really quick, the one after another. The team's going to be rotated. I know it's impossible for us to sort of second guess what Guardiola will do, because we'll probably end up with Zach Steffen playing right wing or something in this one. But if I'm to guess in the next few games where City slip up, it's probably here. And if I'm being honest, I'd probably take a point right now, because I can see them I can see them stinging us.
Right, Colin. Well, Colin, here we go. We'll be looking to get a point at Brentford at their old place.
Spoke like a true City fan. That
yeah, it was almost on brand, wasn't it?
Well, I try and be devil's advocate, but I'm similar to Amos. I'm always half full. Me, I'm never different. I'm sure, and I hope Brentford won't be a big problem, Colin. But yeah, they do have the sort of team and the sort of ground that thinking back in my dodgy memory, that City can struggle at. Col, I mean, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, it's they've done well, haven't they? I don't think anyone expected them to even do remotely as well as they're doing. Although I did say in my King of the Kippax season preview, I was going to go out on a limb and say they would survive this season. I've been proved right. And in fact, they've got 20 points, 10 home, 10 away so far. And actually, their away form has been slightly better than the home form. So, yeah, it's one of those games, and they're going to be up for it. You know, they've got the champions coming. They're much more of a team than Thomas Frank's got them playing really well. The whole is greater than seemingly the sum of the parts, and I think that's always dangerous for us. A team playing as a team, and playing the hearts out will be dangerous for us. It's Wednesday night under the lights. The crowd will be behind them, and we should win it. But yeah, it's every game I'm nervous. So I was even nervous for this one, but it'd be an interesting one. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of think, obviously, say it's always going to be a free hit for Brentford, and I do, but I'm sure we'll have enough. I'm sure we'll have enough on the night, to be honest with you. But yeah, I can't help. But I'm not shaking, guys, or anything like that about Brentford away. Right, let's get on there. The last we're going to talk about Arsenal. Interesting bunch of teams coming up, guys. At the moment, they're sort of strange teams. Abdul, I'll come to you, mate. Again, another team who have been sort of up and down like a yo-yo, and all of a sudden again Arteta's got them playing sweetly, hasn't he, at the moment? I mean, is it not a great time to go to Arsenal, is it? What do you think?
No, ever since that 5-0 defeat at the Arteta has just clicked his mind. Now he knows that if he keeps losing, his job might be on the line. And obviously the fans weren't backing him at that time. They wanted him out of the club. Maybe he's found a formula on how to fix this club. Fix how they're playing, and obviously their recent results, they have been playing very well. Obviously they won yesterday, I believe 4-1 against Leeds, so that was a very good performance by them. And he's even brought Arsenal from relegation positions to Champions League top 4. Well, they're trying to. So seeing this match, it's Arteta versus his mentor Pep, so we'll see how this goes. So hopefully it'll be a cracker.
Well, Amos, yeah, I mean, something on paper perhaps a month ago has suddenly turned into quite an interesting game for City. We've got a good record, of course, at the old Turrets recently, but, this has turned into an interesting one on New Year's Day, which is a 12:30 kickoff, which, again, is another time that doesn't go well with fans or players, certainly not on New Year's Day for the fans anyway, let's be honest about it. But what are your thoughts, Amos? Because I say Arteta's, again, he seems to be getting a good tune out of them after a couple of defeats. I think they got beat by Everton United, didn't they? And then they beat the Southampton West Ham, which is no mean feat, beating West Ham. And all right, Leeds had a flurry of injuries, didn't they? Played a lot of kids, and they actually stuffed Leeds at 4-1. What's your thinking, Amos? Are they flashing to deceive? Are we going to actually teach them a lesson again? What do you think?
Yeah, just a word on that 12:30 kickoff time. It's bizarre, isn't it? Because we spent 18 months, whatever, football behind closed doors, and every single game, Sky commentators, BT commentators, whatever channel it was on, the commentator, it's having no fans is terrible, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as the supporters come back, it seems that the same disregard. He's appearing immediately. I don't know if you clocked this weekend, Middlesbrough were playing Bournemouth at the 12:30 game, and one of the sets of fans had 636 miles for 12:30 is ridiculous, and rightly so. I think on New Year's Day as well, 12:30 for a Manchester to London is shambolic, but hey-ho, it's been set in stone. That's when we'll be playing. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but again, I like Arsenal at the moment. Gabriel Martinelli's been doing magical stuff for them. He's bagged, I think it's 3 in his last 2. Emil Smith-Rowe just looks like a sublime player. He plays with his socks down to his ankles. He has all black boots and sometimes long sleeves. He looks like someone out of the 1970s, but he's absolutely bossing it in their midfield. And they're on a run, and unfortunately, sometimes when City come up against teams who are on a run, we can come a little bit unstuck. Again, I'm hoping that we're the kryptonite to them, because we have been in the past, and bar maybe one FA Cup semi-final, I think it is. Other than that, City have usually had the upper hand on Arsenal in recent years, which going back 20, 30 years, I don't think anybody in a blue shirt would have ever imagined saying, given their superiority.
Yeah, Colin, I mean, obviously, Arsenal away, say it's not been a big problem for us, has it, over recent seasons? Obviously, Arteta has done okay against Pep, I think. He certainly should know Pep inside out, but I'm sure Pep's changed a little bit. What are your thoughts on this New Year's Day game? What are you expecting?
Well, I've watched the last couple of games, and they play like us. You've got to say, Arteta's done a fantastic job. He's handled the personnel side really well. Aubameyang, who's been dreadful and apparently has been taking the mickey, it would seem. He's dropped him, taken the captaincy off him. He's got some great youngsters coming through. And again, they're playing the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And they'll be up for it. There's no doubt about that. And as I couldn't believe watching them against Leeds yesterday. All right, it's Leeds, and Leeds are a bit of a shambles at the moment, but it was like watching us. And say New Year's Day, the lunchtime kickoff, question of who's up for it more.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was dead confident before this vlog and before this podcast, and now I'm down, guys. We're going to be second or third in the league by the time New Year comes down. All depressing. Right, guys, a quick word on something. Is it a circuit break? They called it, Abdul. This thing where they're going to have a meeting. Obviously, I believe only 68% of Premier League players have been double vaccinated. That's still a hell of a lot haven't. I mean, obviously, players are falling by the wayside at the moment. Abdul, it's a shocking state of affairs. I'm not saying people are getting double jabbed to catching these variants. Of course they are, but surely it would have helped. Obviously, if elite athletes like Premier League players have got this, and we wouldn't have this circuit break might be a national thing, so we've got no option. But if the Premier League come out on their own and decide to sort of stall things, what's your take on it, mate?
Now, players not taking their vaccination. Now, what I want to say is these players are actually role models for people, common people like us, like the fans, because these people go show that they have the power, they have voices. So we should be focusing on them, that they're taking vaccination. That encourages us to take vaccinations. I'm not sure if most people have. Obviously, fans should take. The players should definitely take their vaccination, because obviously we have seen most of these games getting postponed, and we might even go back to closed doors, or even football in general, like being closed. So it would be better for fans, for staff, for players to get their vaccination, even if it doesn't stop the spread of this virus. At least we can decrease the amount of spread viruses, like cases. So for me, they should definitely think about it and definitely get their jabs, because as I've said again, they are a role model to us people. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, Amos, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll take your view on this, mate. I'm sure you've had a quick look into this and stuff. And obviously, nationally, it might be taken out of Premier League's hands at some stage. But obviously, the Premier League are having a think about it now. What's your thoughts on it, Amos, about having a break? Will it make any difference, or is there a point behind it all?
Yeah, you'll have to limit me here, because I could probably go for a full hour speaking about this topic. On the players vaccinating side of things, I think I'm not here to sort of cast judgment on anyone's personal point of view. A layman, a citizen, whatever. That's a different conversation for a different podcast entirely. But in terms of footballers, they were given the luxury of being able to continue their profession whilst everyone else was locked down, and they were given the luxury of being able to travel abroad whilst everyone else was locked down. And they were given the luxury of still earning money at a time when a lot of other people's incomes were slashed, almost entirely decimated. People were let off their jobs. They were given redundancies, and every person's got a different case and whatnot. So, but fair enough. But to sort of disregard it, and those numbers there, 68% is abysmal. In terms of the here and now, I'm a big advocate of making sure fans' voices are heard in football. I'm not happy at all with the way things are in terms of matches being called off an hour, 2 hours before. I think that's appalling. You either stick the games behind closed doors and say supporters can't travel to avoid this, and if they're called off at the last hour, then it's only the clubs and they're wealthy enough, you would hope, to be able to foot it, or stop football completely. I think we're at a point now where, yes, the fixture schedules would be hard to fit it in. You might have teams playing 2 games per week, but something has to give. The hope is now 7 days until the next round of fixtures. That's what's going to... We may have powered through it, but with the games coming thick and fast, like we've mentioned, I don't understand where this disappears, because it's not disappearing societally. It's still there in the community. Transmission is high. So football clubs will likely represent that on a smaller scale. So something has to give. I hope it's not football, because we sit here, we speak about it, it makes us happy, we celebrate goals, we're sad when we lose, etc. But it's not. There's no common sense. I guess is the sort of final point I'll make. It just seems there's no common sense.
Yeah, good points. Colin Amos raised some points there. I mean, what are your views on this, mate? Have you about what's happening and whether it's wise to, as I say, if it's as long as it's in the Premier League's own hands and they can make decisions of it, as I said, it might be taken away. What's your thoughts on what may happen, or what do you think should happen?
Well, yeah, like you, I've got a ticket for the Arsenal game. I'm planning to stay down a couple of days, but I don't know if I'm going to book a hotel. It's going to be refundable, because we don't know whether it's going to go ahead. I mean, the question of vaccination is a difficult one. I'm fully vaxxed. I've had my booster. I've had my flu jab. I understand people are concerned, but we take all sorts of stuff. We eat all sorts of stuff, which we don't really know what's in. And I'm glad I've had the jab. I want the jab. And there's a misunderstanding that the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting COVID, but it lessens the effect. I had a flu jab. I think I've had flu, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the flu I had when I hadn't been jabbed a good few years ago. So it's something. As a footballer, again, you're coming into contact with lots of people throughout the day, aren't you? And you're going home to your families, and I'd like to think that sense will prevail. But although there's all this stuff about footballers suddenly suffering heart issues, we don't know if that's vaccine related or not. But it's just another kind of weapon that people use to scare people, and it's a bit silly that I think that only 2 out of 3 footballers in the Premier League have had the vaccine. So hopefully, but we can't. We don't even know how serious this outbreak. I'm not an epidemiologist or expert on viruses, but there seems to be some doubt about this virus may be better at infecting us, but not as good as at infecting us with serious results. And again, the vaccine helps in that regard. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? And when are we going to see the end of it? I don't know. But I think you owe it to yourself to. I appreciate people have different opinions, but you owe it to yourself to give yourself the maximum chance, because it's like you look when you cross the road. Why do you do that? Because you want to make sure you're safe. You don't drive with your eyes closed. You don't take your eyes off the road when you drive. You do it. It's about mitigating risk, and to me, the vaccine mitigates risk.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the argument with vaccinations, and the doctors have said, well, these vaccinations have been around for hundreds of years, and that's what it's not something new that people say, oh, we shouldn't do this. It's something that the medical knowledge is out there to know the uses, as you say, to make things slightly worse than they could be, not particularly just to stop it happening. It's just how it is. So I think we'll obviously, this story will still run a little bit longer yet, guys. I mean, God knows how long, how many months, years, whatever.
One sec, Bernard. Did you see the Kevin De Bruyne quote just after the Leeds game in regards to his COVID situation. He basically came out and said, because obviously he was out for a little bit with COVID and no one really knows how serious the symptoms are or if he's vaccinated. You know, we're not privy to that information, but he basically said, I feel it now when I do a couple of sprints, I know I've had COVID. So he's fitter than all four of us combined will ever be, and that's just probably his left foot. So if someone like Kevin De Bruyne, an absolute world great and unbelievable footballer, is feeling it, it should start a ring alarm bell, shouldn't it, for players and also the mere mortals as well.
I mean, it's disrupting football now, because if teams are not playing games, they're obviously not match fit. So it's already disrupting football, whether we like it or not. It's nice to see us sitting top of the league. So, you know, God forbid they cancel the league. But hey, we've won it, guys. No problem. We're sorted. But, you know, more the merrier. But anyway, it is a sad thing, and it's still a big problem. And we'll obviously come back to that, no doubt, in the future. Before we go, guys, I'm just on a quick come to you, Abdul, first of all. Sergio Aguero obviously announced his retirement last week. It didn't come as a surprise, of course. There was a question as to why he announced it in Spain as opposed to here, but I mean, he's on Barcelona's book, so I mean, I suppose that's just a natural thing to do, and he can speak better Spanish than he can English, even though his English is very good now. I mean, he can still speak better Spanish, so that was fair enough. But Abdul, I think City have offered him an ambassadorial thing. We know about the statue, mate. I mean, obviously, we're not going to say, oh, what's your favourite goal? That's all been done to death. But your thoughts, mate, on what City can do for him and what perhaps he may want to do for City. Perhaps he just wants to go back to Argentina and never set foot in England again. You don't know, mate, do you?
Don't blame him.
What are your thoughts, Abdul, on Sergio as what he could be doing? What should we do for him apart from what we plan to do, which I think is pretty good anyway?
Well, obviously, it's sad to hear that he's retiring. You know, he's been a great footballer, not only for this club, but obviously for every football. Everyone's admired him. Obviously, during the last decade, he has been one of the most clinical strikers we have ever seen in our generation. It's sad to see that he didn't come here to announce his retirement. Obviously, now he's Barca's player. I've heard that I believe City are offering him a global ambassador, I believe, job or a position. So that if I was able to talk to him, I would say please take it, because I'll do anything just to bring him back to this club, because that's where we feel he should be, and that's where his home is. So I'm not sure about what else City can do, but if this is a really good opportunity, well, I respect his decision if he doesn't take it. Obviously, now he's retired. He wants to, be with his family or just go back to Argentina, do whatever he wants. So it's just really sad to, see that he's retired this early.
Yeah, I mean, Amos, as Abdul was saying, you think of people like David Silva and Vincent Kompany. They're not going to particularly. Of course, they have an affinity with our club, and they love our club and what they've done. And Sergio's going to be exactly the same. And it's quite right, City have offered him this, but it won't surprise if we just see him occasionally. I'd love to see him for some sort of farewell, testimonial of some sort. He won't be able to play, obviously, but after that reduced crowd for the Everton game last season, where only a few of us lucky enough to get to see him. But Amos, I think with City have done as much as they can for a legend, and we will see him, but obviously perhaps not as often as we'd like in and around the Etihad. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I just think he's one of those players you look at and you know immediately they're not going to go down the coaching route. Or at least not in England. Obviously, we've mentioned his language barrier, and that's improved greatly. But you just can't see him being a manager, so it probably will be ambassadorial. I was one of those actually banging the Manchester City centric drum that I reckon his ceremony could have involved not just City but Atletico Madrid and Independiente a little bit more as well. I thought Barcelona maybe milked it for a man who played less than 200 minutes for the club. I thought they didn't half jump on the bandwagon, but I'd love to see him back in a sort of, in whatever capacity. I'd love to just see him back at the Etihad, because I wasn't one of those who got a ticket for the Everton game. Pretty gutted, as you can imagine, not just that the trophy lift and whatnot, but I would love to be able to. And I know it's weird because he's still alive, and it's almost that sort of funeral feeling. But I'd love to sort of pay my last respects, because he gave me as a 12-year-old lad something I'll cherish forever, and he's given every single person who has any affinity to even football, unless you're down the road in Trafford, one of the greatest days that they'll remember. So here's hoping to the future that we can give him, sing his name one more time.
Welcome. We'll finish with you for this episode. Not like Barcelona to try and get publicity out of anything, is it? It's very rare for that. They usually, they don't usually pine for publicity or anything like that. But Aguero, Colin. I mean, as I say, I've sort of resigned to the fact that it'd be. I can just imagine him back. Is it Independiente was his team as a kid who he supported? I mean, my thoughts if he'll go back there and do something for them, and obviously we will see him occasionally. But Colin says that we just have left with our memories, mate. Colin, aren't we? I don't think it's going to be much more than that. What do you think?
Oh, well, there's some memories, aren't there? I mean, as you say, it's. Absolute club legend in every sort of way, and such a modest guy. You look at players like Ibrahimovic, Ronaldo. Their heads are so far up their own backsides they can clean the back of the teeth with the tongues, I think. But he's such a modest smile. He seems to enjoy himself, and I hope he'll be well enough to at least play some part in the testimonial that we're still awaiting for him and David Silva. And it's great, isn't it, that players like him and David Silva have come to City with maybe no expectations, and they've stayed with us for 10 years. Yeah, and they could have gone to any club anywhere in the world. And I think with I like in the ambassadorial role, we've got such a connection with South America these days. Obviously, we have all the great Argentinian players. We've had Pablo Zapata, we've had Aguero, Martin de Michelis. We've got all the Brazilians, Fernandinho, Gabriel Jesus, Ederson. And we've got the club in Uruguay, and hopefully he can, even if he goes back to Argentina, he can be our South American ambassador, if you like, in the same way that kind of Mike Summerby is our ambassador here, and people like Tony Buck. But it's just a shame, isn't it, the way it ended? But the City, Pep and I saw Chiqui Begiristan, I think Ferro Soriano were all at the new camp for his farewell. So, but let's face it, but Barcelona need to sell the advertising, didn't they? They need all the money they can get. Apparently, they're trying to scrape the money together for Ferran Torres, and that's what 45 million euros. They can't even find that. So we won't begrudge them.
Yeah, well, there you go. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Abdul. Thanks, Amos. I mean, obviously, he's still reasonably fit. He's still healthy. It's not life-threatening. He's a very rich young man. He's a very lucky guy. I mean, he won't be getting up at 2:00 in the morning like I will be doing tomorrow to go to work and pay the bills. And you guys will be in a similar situation, no doubt. But we love him to bits, and we always will do like all that. But getting too many legends now, guys. That's the problem. We'll be running out of space in 20, 30 years' time for all these statues and stuff, to be honest. Anyway, thanks, Colin. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Amos. Thanks, Abdul. Thanks for everyone watching In Good Company. Hope you enjoyed it today, and hope everyone out there has a great Christmas and a very prosperous and happy New Year. So, as someone else said, up the Blues, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.